Excited to be on with you and share with you some ideas around how we can all do better at thinking big and doing it more consistently. Just want to give you guys some love. It's obvious that you're already thinking big. The company's doing great in terms of production and everything. So there's a lot of you out there already playing the game and thinking big and keeping your head in the right direction. But today we're going to break down some different notes that I have from a Mike Ferry event on how we can continue to think big and do it more consistently. Before we jump into the actual points that I wrote down, the first thought I have for you is that you really have to learn to think big if you want to get big results. And the reason that is the power of thinking big and looking so much further in advance. That's what helps you stay motivated and become that special type of crazy person that actually does the things that you're supposed to do in order to achieve what you want to achieve. Another way to say it is thinking big and having a positive mindset is the easiest way to brainwash yourself or trick yourself into doing more of the important things in your day that you might be avoiding. So hopefully some of these points are things that you can implement into your day-to-day practices and stuff that you can leverage to think bigger and help reach your goals. So I guess let's dive in. I wrote down, you can't grow being comfortable. All growth comes from being uncomfortable. So when you're thinking big, we have to be real with the fact that some of the things that you're going to have to do and the processes you're going to have to go through are going to make you uncomfortable. And that's where all growth comes from. So be prepared to be in uncomfortable positions mentally, physically, emotionally, in related to the time of work you have to put in and all that stuff. And we have to remember that thinking big is a learned process, not something that you can just turn on overnight or something that you're generally born with. It's a long-term process, just like anything else, any other sort of progression that you want in your business and your life. It's always a long-term process, and thinking big is something that never stops, right? You're always going to have to continue to think big and be real with the fact that thinking big isn't a short-term game. It's a long-term process that you have to be committed to in order to keep your head in the right place and do the things that you're supposed to do. I wrote down that thinking big requires learning and growing daily. What I mean by that is if you really want to think big, you have to back it up by learning different things that can help you achieve your goals and being committed to daily growth. Thinking big is a muscle, and it's an important muscle, and it's probably one of the most important muscles. So this is something that you have to be committed to doing every day for the rest of your life. And you can't allow complacency to stay in your life if you really want to think big. Complacency is the enemy of growth and progression towards long-term goals. Complacency makes you comfortable. Complacency, makes you give yourself options that aren't in line with your long-term goal and growth strategies. And complacency is one of the hardest things to fight. So on a regular basis, I think we need to be asking ourselves if we're being complacent, if we're being motivated, if we're thinking big enough, and be real with the fact that when you find yourself in a place of complacency, you're really slowing down the progression of thinking big and keeping yourself motivated and on the right track. And you have to love the process, right? You have to fall in love with the process of thinking big and keeping big goals in front of yourself. And we'll break down some of the different techniques that you can do, but you just have to remember that it's a lifelong journey, right? Because today you achieve something you wanted to achieve yesterday, and then tomorrow you'll achieve something you wanted to achieve today. And in order to continue thinking big, you have to continue the lifelong process of expanding the way you look at things and the opportunities that you deem achievable. One of the things that I've shared with you guys before is I have a book that is my goal book, and one of my goals is to have 1,000 goals written inside of that book. And, you know, there's crazy, you know, like really long-term goals, like owning a casino on the Strip in Vegas, like writing a $10 million check to, you know, charity. And then there's short-term goals, like, you know, maybe a vacation, or, you know, a new widget, or something that is a lot easier to attain. And it's very exciting for me, and helps me think big when I open up that book, for the purpose of adding things to it, for the purpose of just reviewing it. Sometimes when I feel stuck, I'll open the book and I'll just read all of the things that I'm committed to achieving. And it reminds me why I do what I do, right? It's not always going to be easy, and it's not always a walk in the park. So one of the easiest ways to get yourself jacked up is to have a book like this, where you can look through and look at all of the goals that you've set for yourself, and all of the things that you want to achieve, and all the places that you want to go physically and theoretically in your life. And in that process, it's amazing how often you'll be flipping through the pages and you'll see something that you already achieved. And I'll take a red pen, and I'll write victory across the goal. And that also is very motivating. It's not just motivating to write them down. It's not just motivating to review them. It's motivating when you get to write victory across a goal that you've set for yourself, and something that you even forgot was in your goal book. And you start to see that you are creating the life and the goals that you wanted in a short-term and a long-term basis. So I think it's a really fun activity that all of us can do. And I strongly suggest that you consider doing that for yourself. I wrote down, to think big, you have to be open-minded. You can't be closed-minded and be a big thinker at the same time. So thinking big starts with being open-minded and being progressive in where you're allowing your thoughts to go. You have to learn to be limitless in your beliefs. When you learn to be limitless and you really allow yourself to take the thoughts and the vision and the goals further for yourself, it's amazing the things that you'll find. And you have to tell people what your goals are, so it pushes you all the time. You know, some of my closest friends, you know, even some of you know some of my big, crazy, stupid goals. And that helps me stay accountable. It helps, it helps me put it out in the universe, so that by nature of telling people, it puts me in a position where I feel like I'm putting it out in the universe, and now I feel like I'm more committed to having to achieve it. And a big part of thinking big is you have to learn to start thinking outside of the box. Thinking outside of the box in terms of what you deem achievable for yourself, thinking outside of the box and the things that motivate you and excite you. You know, one of the things that I've experienced for myself, and I experience a lot when I talk with agents, as we get older, we have kids, we have grandkids, what starts to happen is our selfish goals start to go out the window, and our goals are more focused around the family, which is great, which is, it shows maturity and development. But at the same time, we can't allow ourselves to forget the selfish goals that we have for ourselves. What is it that you selfishly want that makes you really pumped? Is it a new car? Is it new outfits? Is it new jewelry? Is it, is it donations? Is it, things that really pump you up and keep you motivated for yourself, at the same time having goals for the family, vacation, saving for colleges, maybe helping your kids with a down payment on their house or their business. All of these things are things that you should think about and keep in front of you, so that when you're, when you don't feel like doing it, or when you feel down or you feel stuck, you can open this up and look at all the things that you want to achieve. Thanks, Jonathan. All right. So if we look at the process of thinking big, there's a few points that I wrote down that I think will help. The actual process of thinking big. Number one is you have to remember it's always a journey. It's not a destination. You're never going to get there. If you're learning to continue to think big, you're never going to get to the end goal. And that's the point. The point is to keep the mind stimulated, to keep the heart in love with the process, and to keep striving and achieving for more, just because achievement is some of the best soup for the soul, if you will, right? When you do something that you said you're going to do, you get to be proud of yourself, and that just motivates you to keep going and stay alive and do all the things that are important to you. I wrote down that on this journey, you're on this journey for the rest of your life, which we already talked about. And in light with the idea that you're never going to get there, the important thing to remember is that as long as you're progressing, you're always better than you were before. And that's the goal is, 6 months from now to be better off, to be better, to have more, to achieve more than I did 6 months prior. And if we can continue to raise the bar and be real with the fact that we're never going to get to the finish line, but if we keep moving the finish line back and we keep thinking bigger and letting ourselves, somewhat go wild with the things that we want to accomplish, every day you become better than you were the day before, the week before, the month before. So the first point is to remember that it's a journey. And the hardest part of thinking big is the commitment of sticking to it, right? So I say that because saying to the point that it's a journey that you're never going to get, part of thinking big is committing to continue thinking big and pushing the envelope for yourself. And, it's just one of those things. It's like science. It just works. Like if you allow yourself to have your mind in the right place, stay thinking big, stay hungry. These things make you act different, do different, be different. And that's all critical when it comes to long-term growth and continued success. Number two, when it comes to thinking big, we have to remember that we cannot be impatient. You have to have patience. It always takes time, usually longer than you want, and it's a never-ending process, right? So part of thinking big is on the backside, dealing with the repetitious boredom, dealing with having to be patient with the process, and just knowing that if you keep doing the right actions, the right activities, with the right consistency in the right direction, with the right thinking and the right goals, like this formula only works every time. So it's important that we're always checking these things for ourselves, writing them out, reading them, paying attention to them. There are studies out that say, if you read your goals every single day, you're something, I forget the number, but 300-400% more likely to achieve them by mere fact of reading them every single day. And it's just because what you put in your brain and what you put out in terms of, where you're thinking and where you want to go, and you pay attention to it on a daily basis, that really starts to make a big impact on the way you look at things and the way you approach the business, you approach challenges, and the way you show up every day to work and in life. Number three, important point when it comes to thinking big is quit looking for the easy way. The easy way is oftentimes a slippery slope, right? So, it looks like, man, if I just take this steep climb or use this magic wand or whatever it may be, oftentimes those are the foundations of slippery slopes. And I think it's really dangerous if you already feel like you're going downhill to speed up the process by trying to take shortcuts, because all you're doing at that point, in my opinion, is you're speeding up when you're already going downhill. We have to really understand that the easy way, large in part doesn't work, because if it was easy, everyone would be there. Everyone would be selling a ton of houses. Everyone would achieve their goals. So stop looking for the easy way out and focus on, following people that have done what you want to do, paying attention to how they do it. That's why we're big fans of Mike Ferry. We actually have him coming on next week, August 11th, to do a session for us on 14 different ways that you can finish the year strong. So make sure you tune in for that. It's going to be awesome. So number three, quit looking for the easy way out. Number four, there are certain facts, human natural law, and the assumptions that we have to understand to be a big thinker. The most important one is the idea of the law of reality. If you want to be a big thinker, you have to be very logical in your approach, and you have to be real with reality. I say that saying there's not a reality out there that you can't achieve the craziest goals. But there is a reality out there that you can't achieve those goals unless you back them up with the right actions, activities, processes, systems, attitude, expectations, all that stuff. So you can't have something big on one side, but follow through on the backside with something that isn't in line with that, right? So you have to understand that it has to be non-ego based and understand the law of reality. All right, number 5. We have to be a non-ego person. If you really want to think big, you have to be a non-ego person. When your focus is all on you, you can't see what's happening around you. Think about that. If your focus is all on you, you can't see what's happening around you. And a big part of the progression towards these big goals is paying attention to what's happening around you. Being open to the idea that there might be better ways, more effective ways, smarter ways, less painful ways to achieve the things that you're looking to achieve. So just be real with the fact that, anytime you let ego control your perspective, you're putting blinders on to the different opportunities and lessons that might be out there in terms of helping you think big and continue on the journey of achieving your goals. Number 6, we have to be fact-oriented versus theory-oriented. This kind of goes in line with what we were just talking about a couple points ago. There's certain facts and reality that live in line with reaching big goals and achieving big things. Those facts are you putting in the time? Are you focusing on the mindset? Are you actually talking to people? Are you doing your follow-up? Are you providing good service? All of these things are fact. Are you actually working? Are you putting in the time? Or do you have creative avoidance behavior and finding convenient reasons or excuses to not do what you're supposed to do? When you are a fact-based thinker, especially when it comes to, really all parts of your life, but long-term progression towards your big goals, you have to be living in a fact-based reality world and try to eliminate as many theories and hope-sos as possible. Number 7, we have to learn to challenge ourselves and continue to make ourselves uncomfortable, right? You can't think big, really big, without challenging yourself and making yourself uncomfortable. Some of the goals that I set for myself and we set for the company, they make us uncomfortable. And that's the point. If you're only focusing on goals and thinking big in ways that you're just comfortable with, you're not really stretching yourself. You need to expand your level of thinking and your level of possibility so that you can expand your willingness to have the right output and the right dedication to get there. Every level of success is like another layer in the galaxy, if you will. And the further you get to the next layer, the harder the tension becomes, the more the resistance starts to show up. The closer you get to the next chapter, it gets harder, it gets tougher, there's more resistance. But when you break through that, then all of a sudden, now you're in a whole new system, and things in that new chapter will be easier, and then they get harder, and then they get harder, and then eventually you'll find yourself almost breaking through to the next area, and the next layer, the next chapter, and the tension and the pressure starts to show back up. So you have to be comfortable with challenging yourself and putting yourself in these uncomfortable situations to really put yourself in the best chance of achieving these long-term big thinking goals. Number 8, we can't set limits on ourselves. It closes down the creative process, right? The goal is not to always do things the way that you've done them. The goal is to figure out how to do them more effectively. And a lot of us put limits on the way that we're willing to try new things, and limits on, are the time we're going to put into learning new skills and the time we're going to put into practicing our scripts. You just can't put limits on yourself. You really have to be real with the fact that unlimitless success comes with the inside, removing the limits from yourself, from the gut out. And when you start to put yourself in that position, you start to understand that there's no limits when you're looking up, right? There's no limits when you're looking towards where you want to go. And that has to be backed with limitless actions, activities, and thought processes. All right. So last couple thoughts on thinking big is, I think that all of us should go back to that book that I talked about and make a book for yourself. It's kind of like a vision board, but it's a book and it's something you carry around. Do some window shopping in your brain and really take the time to think about these things and start to think net as opposed to gross, right? So if I want to achieve these goals and deploy this capital towards whatever my said goal is, that's all a net number. So start thinking in net as opposed to gross. Take time to put new goals in your goal book. Take time to review the goals regularly. Take time to visualize and internalize and spend the time window shopping in your brain so that you keep yourself excited around these things. A couple tools that have really helped me when I don't feel like it or my mind's in the wrong place. I think I talked about this before. There's a really good app called the Calm app. Download the app, and it's really easy to just pick a session to focus you on action or focus you on motivation, or if you're dealing with anxiety or pressure, how to deal with that. So the Calm app is a really good tool that I think we can all use to help ourselves open up our mind and think bigger. In addition to that, I think a really big part of thinking big is reading stories about other people, reading books about how other people have achieved the craziest things. One of my favorite books I've read that really helped me start to think even bigger is the Steve Jobs book. It's the big white book with, his iconic gray and white photo on it. Big book, but great read. And what it shows more than anything is how he was more than anything a big thinker, and he wouldn't put limits on things that could be achieved. He was crazy enough to believe that he could do the things that he wanted to do. And he was crazy enough to believe that he could attract the right people. And then he had enough, what's the word I'm looking for? Passion and commitment and conviction behind how big he was thinking and his ability to believe that these things are possible, that he was able to portray that onto his team and the people that worked around him and cause them to think bigger and put themselves in scenarios and achieve things that they never thought they could. Thinking big helps you pay attention to the details. So pick up some books of people you look up to and read the story about them. Either if they wrote it or someone else wrote it, these things really help you think big. And then the last thought I have for you is spend some time on podcasts and on YouTube. There's great podcasts out there on motivation. Oliver has a great one called Founders Club. You should check that out. There's a great one called BIGGGG, which is this guy just interviews CEOs and co-founders of different startups. And, none of them are in real estate, but hearing how these people were able to think big, get creative, how they went through their challenges, all that stuff really helps me continue to think big and understand the possibility of opportunity. And the same thing on YouTube is just going on there and searching for motivational videos, right? A big part of being able to think big and stay motivated is getting the, what's the word I'm looking for? The goosebumps and the tingles and that brain juice really helps you take yourself and your thoughts to places you haven't been and put yourself in a position to take action you're not currently taking. So I hope all this helps. If there's anything I can do to help, let me know. I took about 6 weeks off of Facebook and I'm back. So, you can always reach me either way via email or right here on Facebook, shoot me a text. I'd love to help. Again, you guys, so impressed by everybody. We're doing so well as a company. Everyone is, staying productive and it seems like everyone's doing it the safe and healthy way. And I'm just proud of you. I'm proud of the company. I'm proud of, the team. We're really on track to finish off the year strong and we're proud and humbled to be able to do it with you. So thank you all for your hard work. If there's anything we can do to help you during these times or anytime, please let us know. Make it a great Thursday. Finish off the week strong, and I'll see you guys next week. Stay happy, my friends. Bye.